My name is Hazel and at 32 years old, cancel your wedding. My mom demanded. The money should go to your sister. I said nothing, just sent them this one message. The next morning, my sister showed up crying and told me something that changed everything. If you have ever felt betrayed by the people who should have been your biggest supporters, let me know where you are watching from. 3 weeks ago, I really thought I was finally going to get a little piece, a wing, a celebration that was mine without strings attached. I'd spent years watching other people take center stage, baby announcements, retirement parties for careers that lasted 6 months, dramatic relationship collapses that required a full family tribunal. But this was supposed to be different. I got engaged to Derek on a freezing but perfect Sunday. We were hiking in the Lake District, just the two of us, and he proposed at the summit with wind in his hair and that quiet, nervous look he gets when something really matters. I cried, he cried. We took terrible selfies with our red noses and wind-burnt cheeks. It was wonderful. When we got home, I spent an hour picking out the one photo where I didn't look like a windswept raccoon and made the big announcement in the family group chat. No pressure, just joy. I expected emojis at the very least. Maybe even one of those heartfelt, "You deserve this" replies people post under influencer proposals. Hazel. Instead, I got one. Wow from my dad, a thumbs up from my cousin Amy, and silence from my mom. That silence lasted about 20 hours. Then she called. For context, my mom doesn't call me. She sends voicemails with EastEnders playing in the background and answers texts with the speed and energy of a Victorian ghost. So, when her name lit up on my screen, I genuinely thought she might cry happy tears or offer to help me pick a dress. I answered with, "Hi, Mom," all hopeful and glowing and stupid. She didn't even say hello. She went straight in with, "Hazel, I think you should cancel the wedding." At first, I thought I'd misheard. Or maybe she meant cancel the venue like she'd seen one of those wedding scam exposes on YouTube and was saving me from floral fraud. So, I said sorry. "The wedding," she repeated. "You should cancel it or at least push it back. With everything going on with your sister, it just feels wrong." There was the sacred name Raina, my younger sister, 27, pregnant, unemployed, currently living at home, and letting mom and dad foot the grocery bill while she decides whether to become a birth coach or a YouTube vlogger. The father of the baby, a mystery. We've been told we'll find out when the time is right. In the meantime, mom has been treating the baby like it's the second coming, and Ray like she's some kind of radiant fertility goddess who should not be disturbed. "You want me to cancel my wedding because Rainer is pregnant?" I asked as noodly as possible. "She's overwhelmed. Hazel, she's carrying the first grandchild. And you're throwing this big party while she's trying to figure out her future." Honestly, it seems a bit inconsiderate. I sat there stunned, not angry yet, just blinking at my wall like it might open up and reveal hidden cameras. Then she kept going. Of course she did. And think about the money, the catering, the dress, the flowers. Do you really need all that? Wouldn't it make more sense to put some of that toward the baby? Ray could use a proper crib. She's still sleeping on the sofa. I was paying for the wedding myself. Derek and I had been saving for nearly 4 years. We hadn't asked them for a penny, not for the deposit, not for the rings, not even for the rehearsal dinner. But here she was asking me to cancel because my adult sister was sleeping on a sofa she refused to replace. I could have screamed or reminded her that Raina once borrowed my car and left it stranded on the motorway with no petrol, or that she once called me emotionally dead because I couldn't make it to her birthday weekend. In Itha 2 weeks after my gallbladder surgery. Instead, I just said, "Thanks for letting me know how you feel," and hung up. That night, I sat at the kitchen table with Derek and told him everything. He didn't even flinch. He just took a sip of tea and said, "Uninvite them." I laughed. "You can't uninvite your own family." He shrugged. "Sure, you can. You just type the email and press send." So, I did. It was clean. No emotion, no drama, no explaining myself to people who hadn't earned the right to hear it. Hi all. Given the tension and ongoing stress surrounding our wedding plans, Derek and I have decided to celebrate our day with only those who support us fully. We wish you the best, Hazel. I hit send. I expected silence, or at worst, a string of angry texts and a cryptic Facebook post about when people showed their true colors. What I didn't expect was Raina showing up at my door the next morning. She was in joggers and yesterday's eyeliner, holding her bump like it was a prop in a courtroom drama. Her face was puffy. Her voice trembled as she said, "Can we talk? Just you and me?" I let her in. She sat at my kitchen table, wiping her nose on a hoodie sleeve and looking around like she expected an audience to emerge from behind the fridge. Then she said it. "I didn't want to tell you like this, but I think you should know the baby. It's Derek's." I couldn't breathe for a second. The room went silent. The radiator hissed. I just stared at her. She looked back at me wide-eyed and trembling. "We had a thing," she said. "A few months ago, Mingo, you told me you were on a break. I never would have otherwise." I didn't move. I didn't shout. I didn't cry. I just sat there watching her face, waiting for the twitch, the grin, the wink, anything to indicate this was a twisted joke. It wasn't. Let me rewind. Before Ray sat in my kitchen and told me with trembling lips and theatrical sincerity that her baby might be my fiance's, before I hit send on that email, uninviting half my bloodline from my wedding, I need you to understand where I come from, because if you don't, you'll think I overreacted, or worse, you'll think I made it all up. But the truth is, I come from a family where love was measured by how well you could absorb damage without bleeding on the carpet. Growing up, I was the fixer, the buffer, the one who knew better. Raina, she was the storm. My mom called her spirited. My dad called her a handful. I just called her inevitable. From the moment she could speak, Raina knew she was the main character. When she screamed in public, Mom scooped her up and whispered, "She's just passionate." When I got straight A's, Mom said, "Let's not make your sister feel bad." By the time Raina hit 13, I was 17 and already plotting my escape. She started dressing like every outfit was a dare and flirting with anything that moved. Teachers, my friends, strangers on the train. It wasn't just teenage insecurity. It was power, and she knew it. She also knew exactly how to aim it at me. Once I brought a guy named Adam home from uni for a long weekend. He wasn't serious, just someone I was seeing. I caught her sitting on his lap in the garden giggling. When I asked what the hell she was doing, she said, "Relax, he's not that into you anyway." Adam left the next morning. That wasn't an isolated incident. Over the years, there were whispers, text I wasn't supposed to see. One guy I'd been seeing casually told me months later that Rainer had messaged him at 10:08 a.m. saying, "If you're tired of babysitting, let me know." And my mother, she always found a way to blame me. "If you don't want competition, maybe be more feminine," she once said after I confronted her about Raina's behavior. "You're too stiff." Boys like softness. Every relationship I tried to build came with commentary. I dressed too severe. My laugh was too loud. My ambitions were intimidating. "You'll scare them off," my mom warned. Men want to feel needed. So I chipped away at myself, sanded down every sharp edge until I was palatable, dateable, appropriately small. And when things didn't work out, she never asked if I was okay. She just shrugged and said, "Well, that's what happens when you act like you don't need anyone." I don't know exactly when I started believing I was unlovable. It wasn't a switch. It was erosion, a slow, steady process of being overlooked, dismissed, and dressed down by the people who were supposed to lift me up. Which is why when I met Derek, I genuinely thought he was a prank. We met at a university alumni mixer of all places. He was standing alone at the drinks table debating whether to go with red or white. I told him the red was safer. He laughed and said, "I trust you." I should have known I was doomed. He was kind, not in a performative way. He listened, asked questions. When I spoke, he made eye contact and didn't interrupt. Not once. The first time he complimented my dress, I said, "Really? I thought it made my shoulders look aggressive." He frowned and said, "Aggressive shoulders? Is that a thing?" It threw me off more than it should have. I was used to compliments with qualifiers. Pretty, but try smiling more. Smart, but don't be too much. But Derek just liked me as I was. I waited for the catch. Was he broke, secretly married, into conspiracy theories? Nope. He had a steady job, a sweet dog, and parents who still held hands in public. The first time I met his family, I nearly short-circuited. His mom hugged me at the door and called me love before I'd even said hello. His dad asked about my job and actually remembered the answer when I mentioned it later. They laughed, not at anyone's expense, just because they were happy. After dinner, I stood in their kitchen, awkwardly holding a plate, unsure what to do. Derek's mom gently took it from my hands and said, "Your guest. Go relax." I almost cried on the spot. No one had ever told me to sit down in a kitchen before. I didn't know love could feel like that, spacious. And once I had a taste of it, going back to my family felt like stepping into a haunted house. With the lights on, I noticed things I used to shrug off. The way my mom compared every single one of my decisions to Raina's. Rainer got pregnant by accident. She's following her heart. I planned a wedding after saving for years. Seems a bit showy. Hazel, who are you trying to impress? Ray asked to borrow money. She's just in a hard place. I said no for the first time. Wow, cold much. Every time I stood up for myself, they acted like I was committing arson. So, I stopped trying to explain myself. I chose my peace over their approval. I stopped bailing Raina out. Stopped picking up the phone when Mom wanted to talk her monologue for 45 minutes about how I'm failing the family emotionally. Thought I was free. And then I got engaged. That's when the pressure returned. Like a bad habit. You're going to make this whole thing about you. Shouldn't you wait until after the baby's born? Weddings are expensive. Wouldn't it be better to invest in your niece or nephew's future? As if I'd hijacked the family narrative by daring to celebrate my relationship. And when I pushed back, when I said, "No, we're moving forward as planned," that's when Raina showed up with her sad eyes and her ticking stomach and said, "I need to talk to you alone." That's when she told me the baby was Derek's. And here's the part I hate the most. I didn't believe her. Not exactly, but a small traitorous part of me, a part shaped by decades of gaslighting, did just for a second. And that second nearly broke me, because it wasn't just a lie, it was a weapon. And the worst part, I was already conditioned to accept that maybe I deserved it. If you've ever had your sister claim she's pregnant with your fiance's child out of the blue, no evidence, just vibes and a conveniently shaky voice, then you know what the next 48 hours feel like. Like someone set your brain on fire and then said, "Relax, it's just a bit of smoke." I didn't sleep that night, not because I believed her, at least not fully, but because I didn't know what came next. What do you do after someone crosses that kind of line? What's the etiquette? Do you send a card that says, "Congrats on your performance"? I rated a B- for pacing. I woke up the next morning to 3 texts from Raina. "I didn't mean to upset you. I just thought you should know. This is really hard for me too. Please don't tell Mom yet." Translation: I know this is nuclear and I want to control the fallout before it hits me. I didn't respond. Instead, I sat Derek down over breakfast and asked him quietly, deliberately, if there was anything he needed to tell me. He looked genuinely horrified. "No, God, no. Hazel, what's going on?" So, I told him, and then I watched his face shift through disbelief, amusement, and something like heartbreak. He said, "You really think I'd do that to you?" And I said, "No." But the truth was, I didn't know what I thought. I was too busy trying not to drown. He wrapped his arms around me and said, "She's lying. We both know that she's always needed attention. And now, with you getting married," he didn't have to finish the sentence. "She couldn't stand the fact that for once I was the headline." That afternoon, I did something I probably should have done years ago. I canceled the standing payment I'd been sending to Rainer every month for essentials. Essentials, which based on her Instagram stories, included eyelash extensions and chai lattes. Then I went through my emails and forwarded my wedding planner the new updated guest list. No Rainer, no mom, just the people who hadn't tried to psychologically carpet bomb my engagement. Within 6 hours, my phone started buzzing like it owed someone money. Missed calls, voicemails, one furious text from mom that said, "You're overreacting. Ray is pregnant and emotional. This isn't the time to punish her for a slip up." A slip up? What exactly was the slip up? Lying about an affair, implying my fiancé was a cheat, or telling me not to tell her? I didn't reply. I turned my phone off. The next morning, Raina showed up at my flat unannounced. Of course, she was in full I'm the victim mood. Puffy eyes, hoodie, no makeup. The kind of look you cultivate when you want the world to know you've been wronged. I didn't let her inside. We stood in the doorway like two lawyers about to start depositions. She said, "I feel like you're shutting me out." I said, "You made up a story that my fiancé is the father of your baby. What exactly would you like me to do with that?" She sniffled. "I didn't make it up. I had a feeling." He always looked at me kind of weird. I blinked. "You mean like how most humans look at the woman who destroyed their partner's car keys with a glue gun?" She flinched. "That was an accident." "No, Raina, that was psychotic." She shook her head. "You always twist things ever since we were kids." Oh, here we go. The great retelling of Hazel as the harsh one, the joy killer, the unfun sister who never let Ray just be herself. I said, "Raina, I'm not interested in your version of history. You lied and now you're facing the consequences." Then I closed the door. Not loudly, not dramatically, just firmly. Because if there's one thing that drives people like Raina crazy, it's not getting a reaction. The next escalation came quickly. My mother called Derek, yes, my fiancé. She left him a voicemail so syrupy it might as well have come with a free pancake. "Derek, sweetheart, I just wanted to say, I know none of this is your fault. I know you never heard Hazel, but she's very emotional right now. Maybe you could talk to her, calm her down." She then followed it up with a text. "I know you'll do the right thing. She's just overwhelmed." Overwhelmed? I wasn't the one fabricating paternity plots. I played Derek the messages. He laughed, but not in a funny way. More in a "is this real life or a tell-Nola" kind of way. Then we made a decision. We were moving the wedding date up, not out of fear, out of freedom. We didn't want to spend another 4 months waiting for the next sabotage attempt. I told my planner. She was thrilled. Apparently, our venue had just had a cancellation and she could shuffle everything around with minimal chaos. We were back on track for about 20 minutes. Then the group text happened. Rain added me, Derek, Mom, Dad, Aunt, who only shows up when there's gossip, and a few cousins who haven't spoken to me in years. She wrote, "Just so everyone knows, I've been uninvited from my own sister's wedding for telling the truth. She thinks her life is too perfect to admit that sometimes men make mistakes. I didn't want to go anyway, but this family should know the kind of person she's become." I stared at the screen. Then I typed, "The kind of person who sets boundaries. The kind of person who doesn't tolerate lies. Yeah, that's exactly who I've become. And thank God for it." Then I left the chat. One cousin messaged me privately. "Yikes, that was a lot." Another wrote, "Honestly, proud of you." And then my favorite aunt layer, who never minces words, replied, "Raina, sit down. You've embarrassed yourself enough this year." That one I screenshotted and saved for later. Joy folder. As the new date approached, the drama settled into a simmer. Rainer went quiet. Mom sent one final email that said, "You've made your choice. I hope you're happy." I didn't respond. I was too busy planning a wedding I'd actually enjoy. And when the day finally came, sunny, calm, perfect, I walked down the aisle toward a man who never once made me question my worth. No drama, no theatrics, no lies, just us and peace. For the first time in my life, I felt like I was exactly where I was meant to be. Here's what they don't tell you about peace. Sometimes it feels suspicious. After the wedding, after the flowers and dancing, and the quiet honeymoon tucked away in the countryside, I waited for the next explosion. A surprise voicemail, a dramatic doorstep apology, a baby photo captioned with Derek's initials. Something, but nothing came. For 2 full weeks, the silence held. Then, one Sunday morning, while I was folding laundry and thinking about absolutely nothing at all, I heard a knock on the door. Not a text, not a call, an actual knock. The kind that says, "I know you're home. You'll have to look me in the eye." I opened it and there she was, Raina. Her face was stripped bare. No makeup, no posing. She looked older than I remembered, tired, or maybe just real. She stood there for a moment, then said, "Can I come in?" I didn't answer right away. I didn't owe her that. But eventually I stepped aside. She sat on the edge of the couch like she thought it might bite her. "I'm not here to start anything," she said. "Good," I said, crossing my arms. There was a long silence. Then she exhaled. I lied. It took me a second to process it. Even longer to believe she actually said it. "Lied," I repeated. She nodded, looking down at her hands. "Derek's not the father." I made that up. I didn't say anything because honestly, what could I say? She continued, "I wanted to hurt you. That's all it was." So, I said nothing. Raina leaned back on the couch and stared at the ceiling like the truth was written there. "You know, I never used to believe in love. Not really. I dated because it was fun. It was easy. I didn't think it was real." I sat down across from her but didn't speak, just listened. "Then last year, I met this guy," she said, and her voice went soft. "Nate, we met at a concert. He wasn't like the others. At least I thought he wasn't." She gave a humorless laugh. I actually caught myself smiling at texts, making excuses to see him. I even deleted my dating apps. First time in years. And I asked, though I already knew. And the second I brought up being exclusive, he bailed. Said I was coming on too strong. Said he wasn't ready for anything serious. Then ghosted me completely. Raina swallowed. That was the guy, the father. I haven't even told him. I couldn't. I was too embarrassed. She wiped her eyes roughly with her sleeve. I was the player. Hazel, that was my whole identity. And suddenly, I got played and pregnant. I didn't know how to process it. I still don't. I could feel my heart softening, but not breaking, just shifting. "Then you got engaged," she said. "And you looked happy, like real happy with someone solid, a guy who doesn't play games." And it made me feel she trailed off alone. I offered. She nodded. "Yeah, like I'd lost something I didn't even know I wanted until it was already yours." Then she looked me in the eye. I told myself he'd cheat eventually. That all men do. So I might as well prove it to you before it happened. "That's twisted," I said quietly. "I know," she whispered. Another silence stretched between us, the kind that usually comes before a goodbye. "I'm not asking for forgiveness," she said finally. "I just needed you to know." I stood and walked to the window, mostly so I wouldn't have to look at her. My reflection in the glass looked unfamiliar. Stronger, maybe. A woman who didn't flinch anymore. "You hurt me," I said, "more than anyone ever has. I can't just forget that. I don't expect you to. But I also think I understand you more now." She looked startled, like that was the last thing she expected. "You're not evil, Raina," I added. "You're just used to operating like love is a game and you finally lost." She nodded slowly. "Yeah, I did. We didn't hug. No dramatic reconciliation. No slow music or swelling violins. Just a long, heavy pause. And then she stood up. "I'll go," she said. "Thank you for listening." She walked to the door and opened it, then turned back. "And Hazel, yeah, I meant what I said before. He's one of the good ones. You picked well." I watched her walk down the hall and disappear round the corner. And just like that, The war was over, not forgiven, not forgotten, but over. Later that night, I told Derek what happened. He listened without judgment. That's something he's annoyingly good at. He said, "Do you feel better?" I thought about it, then said, "I feel like I finally understand the fight I've been in my whole life." "And what's that?" "The one where I keep thinking I have to prove I deserve love." Derek didn't argue. He just pulled me closer and said, "You don't have to prove anything." And I believed him. It's been 12 months. 12 months since I married Derek. 12 months since I stood in front of people who genuinely cared about me and said yes without flinching. 12 months since I uninvited most of my immediate family from the biggest day of my life. I've thought about that day more than I'd like to admit. Not the ceremony. That was perfect. I mean the decision. Hitting send on that message, drawing a line in the sand, still feels like the right thing to have done. We didn't go no contact. Not officially. But we didn't exactly rebuild anything either. If this were a weather forecast, I'd call it partly frosty with a chance of tension. My mom hasn't spoken to me since the wedding. She never said it. But I know she took it personally, being uninvited. She sees it as a betrayal, not the months of guilt tripping, not the emotional blackmail, not my sister's lie about Derek. No, the betrayal was me saying enough. My dad didn't go either, even though I never uninvited him. He said he couldn't come without her. I told him I understood. I lied. But I still sent him a card on his birthday. He sends one back. We don't say much, just polite, distant things. And that's our rhythm now. As for Raina, she had her baby in the spring. A girl, cute as hell. I found out through my cousin's Instagram. No direct messages. No announcements. Just a casual photo with a pink onesie and a caption that said, "Meet the sassiest addition to the family." We haven't spoken since that day. She knocked on my door and told the truth. We see each other sometimes. Weddings, funerals, a baby shower once for someone else. We make eye contact. We nod. Once she said hi, and I said it back. That was it. She never asked for forgiveness. I never offered it. But she also never lied again. So maybe that's something. We're not enemies anymore. Just people with history, the complicated kind. And that's what family is sometimes. Not love or loyalty. Just a shared map of damage. Derek's family is different. They call me just to check in. They include me in game nights and text me random memes. His mom gave me a recipe book last week and said, "Just in case you want to make something other than frozen pizza." Which, to be clear, I don't. But still, progress. I never thought I'd say this, but I like having in-laws. Life now feels smaller, but also safer. The wedding was intimate, only about 30 people. But it felt full in a way my old family gatherings never did. Not crowded, not performative, just real. We're looking at buying a house this full. Something with a little yard and many windows. Derek wants to build a deck. I want a library wall. We'll probably compromise and get both or neither. Depends on the budget. Sometimes I wonder if things will ever change with my family. If my mom will pick up the phone. If Rainer will ever write a real apology. But I don't wait for it. I don't need it. That's the real difference. Before I spent so much time proving I was worthy of kindness, of peace, of love. Now I know I am, and I don't require a committee to validate it. I don't need the people who broke me to sign off on my healing. So no, we're not reconciled. We're not hugging at Christmas or pretending any of this didn't happen. But we're also not at war, and that in its own quiet way is enough. Still, sometimes I wonder, did I do the right thing? Was uninviting them from the wedding the boundary I needed? Or did I go too far? I'd really love to hear what you think. If this story made you feel something or made you think, go ahead and subscribe.